Welcome to the second video of this series, How to Achieve a Native-like Pronunciation in All Languages. In the previous video, I gave an overview of how to tackle individual speech sounds, or individual vowels and consonants. If you haven't already, feel free to check that video out. A lot of learners seem to think the speech sounds are all you have to master in order to get rid of a foreign accent. Sure, they are important elements, if not, the most important element of speech, but there's more to it. The truth is, speech contains other important elements we refer to as prosody. Some prosodic features you might have heard of are intonation, tone, stress, and rhythm. For native speakers, those features are used subconsciously for purposes like distinguishing statements from questions or commands, and putting emphasis on important information. The prosodic features also change depending on the context, the emotional state of the speaker, and who the speaker is talking to. For example, is the speaker giving a public talk, is the speaker annoyed, and is the speaker talking to a child? For non-native speakers, though, not paying attention to these features contributes greatly to a foreign accent. Today's video is going to be a short one focusing on just the rhythm of speech. This is a fun one. There's this appealing idea that all languages may be assigned one of the three rhythmical types. In any of the three, the duration of speech is regularly divided into equal rhythmic units based on the rhythm type. This regularity is referred to as isochrony. According to this belief, a language is either stress-timed, syllable-timed, or Mora-timed. In a stress-timed language, the duration of the intervals between stressed syllables is relatively constant. Examples are English, Thai, German, and Russian. In a syllable-timed language, the durations of successive syllables are relatively constant. A few examples are French, Spanish, Cantonese, Mandarin, and Korean. Last but not least, in any Mora-timed language, the durations of successive mori are relatively constant. Some examples are Japanese, Hawaiian, and Ancient Greek. This distinction may not be apparent to you now. Let's listen to some examples. I'm using the voice lines of Child from Genshin Impact, because this game happens to have voiceover for all three rhythm types. We will start with a stress-timed language.
There's nowhere to run!
Hey girlie, hold still.
English is a well-known one. Pay attention to the last two sentences.
I'm not a bad guy. Oh, okay, perhaps I'm kind of a bad guy, but I'm not here to give you any trouble. Would it be too much to ask for you to keep the sword sheathed?
Since the stressed syllables mark the rhythm, other syllables between the stressed syllables tend to be compressed to fit into the time interval. The non-stressed syllables are reduced in volume and duration. For example, to, for, and you, in this voice line would it be too much to ask for you to keep the sword sheathed, are pronounced quieter and quicker. I will repeat the line in a very flat tone. Would it be too much to ask for you to keep the sword sheathed? Can you kinda tell which ones are the stressed syllables? If you want, you can compare stress timing with Morse code. Would it be too much to ask for you to keep the sword sheathed? We will now listen to the same lines in Mandarin and Korean, which are both considered syllable-timed languages.
我不是坏人，我大概是坏人吧，但我不是来找你们麻烦的。可不可以拜托你先别想着立刻把这个人打倒呢？
난 나쁜 사람이 아니야. 나쁘긴 한데 나쁜 짓을 하려고 너희들을 찾아온 게 아니야. 일단 검부터 좀 치워주면 안 될까?
Compared to stress timing, syllable and Mora timing have much more regular pacing. This rhythm type is also referred to as machine gun rhythm.
但我不是来找你们麻烦的。
나쁜 짓을 하려고 너희들을 찾아온 게 아니야.
Mora-timed languages also have regular pacing, but the rhythmic unit Mora is slightly different from syllables. Anyhow, we can still treat Moras like beats in music. Let's hear some Japanese lines. What's the difference between syllable timing and Mora timing then? This will be a review for many of you, but a syllable is a unit of pronunciation containing one unit of vowel sound, with or without surrounding consonants. Similarly, a typical VRCV syllable takes up one Mora or one beat, just as in a syllable-timed language. However, glottal stops and final nasals in Japanese, for example, also take up one unit of time. Lung vowels in Japanese also have longer duration. For instance, it takes up 5 rhythmic units. We can think of Mora timing as having the most number of beats from all three rhythm types, putting everything together.
But I'm not here to give you any trouble.
但我不是来找你们麻烦的。
나쁜 짓을 하려고 너희들을 찾아온 게 아니야.
とにかく君たちと喧嘩したいわけじゃない。
Let me know if you are convinced by the idea of three rhythm types. In case some of you have already noticed, the rhythm is oftentimes disrupted. Other prosodic features will modify these proposed rhythms, and they are something we will take care of in the future. For now, we will talk briefly about chunks and pauses. Words or characters are always grouped into chunks in speech. For example, in Japanese and Korean, chunks seem to be separated by particles. In between the chunks, we usually get pauses, be it a silent pause or a filled pause like ah, hot, ouch, and wow. These dashed lines are how I would group them, but it's normal for everyone's grouping to be different. Nevertheless, I'd say the rhythmic divisions are fairly constant on average, even if we take into account other prosodic features. So, how does knowing the rhythm help us in learning a foreign language? By paying attention to a language's prosodic features, we can reduce our foreign accent. Here are some prominent rhythmic characteristics people who speak the four languages exhibit. When foreigners speak a more timed language, they tend to shorten sound that should take up one full beat. For example, in this sample, the end sound was held shorter than its ideal length. When native speakers of a stress-timed language speak a language not stress-timed, they add in extra stress and reduce other syllables. Here we have English voice actors attempting to pronounce Chinese names. Let's ignore tone and pronunciation for now.
I'm Beto. Xingqiu, at your service, my liege.
The English speakers tend to put stress on the first syllable of names, just like when they would pronounce names like Jackie and Emily. Whereas in Mandarin, the two syllables are produced more or less with the same duration and loudness. Listen to a few more pairs.
I'm Beto. 我是北斗. Xingqiu, 行秋, Ningguang, Ningguang.
In contrast, people who are not native speakers of a stress-timed language will produce fewer reductions. Many learners of English find themselves out of breath, and this is from the lack of reduction and pausing. Listen to this sample.
2019 Mnet Asian Music Awards Best Dance Performance Solo.
That's it for this video. If you speak or study a language not mentioned in this video, why don't you try figuring out its rhythm type? Here's a bonus question. What about the difference between languages that share the same rhythmic type, like between Mandarin and Korean? Make some guesses if you will, and I will see you next time.